Hello and welcome for this new video, the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Today we will see the verse 74, conclusion of a series of practices around the experience of bliss. Verse 74. Om yatra yatra manas tuṣṭir manas tatraiva dhārayet tatra parānandasvārūpaṃ sampravartate. Wherever attention or the mind, let's say the mind for a change, wherever the mind is happy, there one should fix it. Wherever the mind is happy, there one should fix it. In that very place, tatraiva, one should fix one's attention. Wherever attention is happy, one should fix it in that very place, there itself. Because it is there that one's own essence of supreme bliss will manifest, will become alive, will become something, a direct experience, sampravartate. It will start to become alive because, again, awareness, consciousness is always there. Consciousness is synonymous with experience. So, of course, experience is present in any experience, but usually it is not tasted, it is not realized, it is not savored. Consciousness is conscious of anything except herself. So even though consciousness is bliss, that bliss is not felt. It remains faint at the background. It is there, but it is there at the background, as if sleeping, as if asleep, like the kundalini, the sleeping serpent, which is one of the traditional images of that sleeping awareness. So when awareness turns upon herself and realizes herself, she becomes alive, so to speak. She starts to really operate her own powers and to feel her own bliss. So sampravartate. Kim sampravartate? Parānandasvārūpaṃ. One's own essence, which is a transcendent bliss. Transcendent para, because it is not just dependent on the object of the senses, on the objects of the mind. It is not neither dependent upon the ordinary cause and effect relationships. It is something which is always present, which is the basis of all causal relations, but is not itself conditioned by those laws of cause and effect. It's always there because it is one's own essence, oneself, swarupam. So wherever one's attention finds her contentment, happiness, joy, manas tuṣṭihi iti manasah pramodaha, pramodaha, the joy. And here the commentator spends quite a long time and some funny passages to distinguish that joy, that tuṣṭihi, that parananda, that transcendent joy, to separate it from ordinary, from worldly joy, pleasure, desire, karma. And he describes in a very condensed way, in just one sentence, one big sentence, the process of sexual attraction. And yes, so that joy should be the joy of feeling Chidanandatmakaha Shivoham Asmi Mamaeva Yam Bhangihi. I am Shiva himself, who is bliss and consciousness, the bliss that is consciousness, and all these are the waves is issued from the vast ocean that I am, the ocean of consciousness. Napunaha kevala kama paratantrataya. This is not a happiness that depends on the desire, that depends just on desire, on sexual desire alone. And that happiness, according to him, that is spoken of in that verse, is the happiness that you can access after having quelled ordinary sexual desire. Kamadikshobham prashamya. So first, there is a basic, a preliminary practice of calming down the desire by seeing the defects of the object of desire. So this is not really the practice of Kashmir Shaivism. Here I think, again, you see those traditional commentators who are quite late, 17th, 18th century, they don't feel very comfortable with all those verses that speak about pleasure as a possible awakening. And they don't feel very easy with that. But what does the verse mean? The verse means that attention, manas, is always moving, like a monkey jumping from tree to tree, or more like a bee gathering pollen, nectar from all different flowers. And apparently the bee is going from one flower to the next somehow at random. If you look at the bee, there is no very, very rational scheme emerging. It's moving, as it were, at random. Of course, it's not really random, but it's just moving. It looks like it's moving freely among the flowers. And attention, well, works and should work like that. You relax and you let your attention, your awareness, the focus of your awareness, jump from one place to another. You let your awareness scan freely, just like you leave an animal roaming free in the wild. And naturally, attention is attracted by pleasure, and you just focus on that pleasure, recognizing that it is awareness, consciousness, a more or less contracted manifestation of form or state of universal consciousness, of infinite bliss. And thus it helps attention to turn back on its source, on consciousness, and bliss increases. And for that, you don't need to renounce sexual pleasure and desire and ordinary pleasures and desires, but rather learn the aesthetic art of enjoying, of savoring, and first of all, of savoring just the experience of being here and there, the five senses, the sixth sense of imagination, memory, and inner speech, thought. Just the joy of that manifestation, of that light, and that all the time relaxing, opening, like the smoke of incense, dissolving into space, dissolving, opening up in silence. And that's the practice here. Just relaxing naturally in natural happiness without trying to tighten too much attention, without trying to control attention. For as Abhinavagupta says, and also Vijnana, Vamana, two people who are great poets, or at least great enjoyers of poetry, they said the mind should be dissolved, brought to be dissolved into the vast sea of consciousness through a gentle wind blowing on that ship. Not a tempest, not a storm, no violence, not hatha, not violence, not technical violence, but rather soft, intelligent, understanding how attention works, how the body works, how consciousness, because the body, attention, all that is consciousness, how consciousness, how I function. Because Abhinavagupta remarks very keenly that the mind is so wild and tricky that it can come to feel disgust for pleasure if it is not presented to it in the right way, and it can feel attracted to pain if presented in the right way. And common experience is filled with that. You can see many people very often desiring for sorts of pain, the pain of fear, seeing a horror movie, doing dangerous sports, jumping, flying, free falling, taking risks, the excitement of that pain, of the risk, the stress, feeling under pressure because of feeling alive under those conditions, those hard conditions. And feeling alive is nothing but feeling that bliss, the bliss of being, the bliss of existing, the bliss of life, the bliss of consciousness. All that is equivalent, pointing at the same heart, vibrating heart of any individual existence. It is that heart of bliss, of deep bliss, as if someone else was living inside us, someone else that is always somehow connected to that bliss, immersed, drawn in that bliss. And we try to wake up to that person inside us through those practices. So it's not when that verse says wherever the mind or attention goes to find happiness, it doesn't mean just gross, ordinary happiness. It's more subtle than that. It's wherever the mind goes, it goes to its source. It always, in fact, turns upon her self-awareness. Awareness turned to awareness. And that means bliss. That means also feeling the heart of the body, the heart of one's being. All those things described in such a rich language in the tantras, the language of the subtle body, the language of all the symbols of the sun, the moon, the channels, the vital breaths, those levels of sound, of being, of all that, just trying to point to that inner bliss that is there, always, already, but just turning one's attention. And one way to turn one's attention is just to let attention roam free. Attention will naturally go to her source. And this is what also Christian mystics say. According to Aristotle, any element of nature wants to go back to its natural state. So the earth wants to go back to the center because the natural place of the earth, of the element earth, is the center, the lowest place in the universe. And fire naturally wants to go back to the stars because it wants to join with its natural place. And the natural place of the soul is God. So naturally, there is nothing to do, just remaining quiet, relaxed, just to let the soul naturally go to her source, just like rivers and waters naturally going back to the ocean. Because that's their very nature. Water wants to go back to water. So just the same way here, attention that is scattered, fragmented, distracted, naturally wants to go back to her source. And it's just a question of remaining relaxed enough so that attention will naturally go find her source and merge there. This is what that verse is saying. We have an instinct for awakening. We have a spiritual instinct. Just relaxing, we just let go and we just open up to that possibility. And naturally, the mind, the body, all the energies will go back to their natural state. You know, it's like when you're in nature, the weather is sunny, there are no dangers and no pressures. You just feel relaxed and your mind and body roam and you find yourself in that magical state of flow. Magical state of flow. You're, as some say, you're in the zone. You're in the flow. You have a feeling of easiness. Everything goes on. Everything seems to be right in place. Everything is shiny, happy, clear, alive, good. There is nothing to correct. And there is nothing to control. Just relaxing, letting go, and that flow will settle just by itself. No special technique involved, no special manipulation needed. Just relaxing, and we go back to our natural state because we have that intelligence, that spiritual intelligence. We have that instinct to just let go and everything will settle back just right. So that's what that verse is saying. And that's all for today. Have a good day. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.